Paul Sereno has discovered dinosaurs all over the world. The National Geographic explorer in residence and paleontologist at the University of Chicago will display two of his finds, the 40-foot-long dinosaur-eating super croc and vacuum-mouthed Nigersaurus, at the Sam Noble Museum of Natural History through August 24th. Sereno has a doctorate in geology from Columbia University and the American Museum of Natural History in New York. He has unearthed fossils from Australia to Argentina. Good afternoon, Dr. Sereno. It's a pleasure to be here.
Delighted.
I'm curious, how does one become a globe-trotting dinosaur hunter?
Well, I think, it starts with a curiosity in nature. And actually, I got my start collecting butterflies outside my Chicago home.
I would imagine a lot of kids could probably say the same thing.
Yeah, and I think that that's where it starts. It just starts with curiosity. And then it goes through earning some decent grades in a variety of classes. And then all the specialized training, that occurs afterwards. That occurs once you're into a graduate program and you're learning the ins and outs of doing research.
Well, could you talk about your various expeditions to Niger and Morocco, the Sahara, and also about the museum you mentioned that is underway, I believe, in Niger?
Yeah, we're working on a museum in Niger. We hope someday it'll be as big as the museum here in Oklahoma. You guys have the biggest natural history museum on any university campus, something to be really proud of. I began my work in Africa and traveling around 20 years ago. I got the job at University of Chicago as a professor, never led an expedition. This is very typical of probably many jobs. You get hired and you say, okay, well, let's just go out and try to find something. And it turned out that it's actually easier to do than it might seem.
I noticed looking at the National Geographic Milestones on their website that they had listed several of your finds. I'm curious what you consider to be some milestone finds.
Oh, I think the first one is always memorable. I took a team down to Argentina. This is sort of classic. We didn't have really enough money. I didn't speak Spanish. They didn't speak English. How could we survive, in this desert in the foothills of the Andes? We had no maps, and within 3 weeks we had located the first skeleton of and complete skeleton of the early dinosaur.
The dinosaurs that are on display until August 24th, I believe, at the Sam Noble Museum are unique in a number of ways. Could you talk about them a little bit?
Three of my favorite animals. Two are dinosaurs, one's a crocodile. One is, this crocodile is the largest crocodile that's ever lived. We call it Super Croc, 40-foot crocodile. An amazing animal. It was tremendously fun and interesting to reconstruct it. It involved, believe it or not, trapping live crocodiles, the biggest we could find on rivers in Costa Rica, risking your lives to get these measurements so that we would reconstruct it actually correctly. The other two really win the award for bizarreness among dinosaurs. One it's a Spinosaur. The Spinosaur is a wannabe. It's a dinosaur trying to be a crocodile, and it stretched its skull out to almost unrecognizable proportions. It attacks with vicious claws. So the thumb claw on this dinosaur in the museum, Sam Noble Museum, is a foot long. The actual claw is bigger, 16 inches. It was walking around with gaffer hooks, 16 inches long, and with a long, drawn-out skull. It's got a spine, a sail on its back. This is a bizarre dinosaur. It was facing off with Super Croc because they both like fish. They had a taste for fish. They also both have a taste for dinosaurs. And one of their favorite prey items was a very common plant eater. We've just reconstructed it, and we named it after the country, Nigersaurus. Now, it's a long-necked dinosaur, a distant relative of Diplodocus, which comes from North America. But it just took its skull to the other extreme. It evolved tiny teeth, 500 of them, coming out in batteries so that it could mow down plants right along the ground. And part of the extreme fun was putting this bizarre, its mouth expands like a vacuum, putting the skull together, and then realizing that it was adapted for munching right along the ground.
Is paleontology, I don't know if this is stretching it, but equal parts art and science, or some proportion of one or the other?
It's a Cinderella science that involves everything. I mean, it involves art, it involves geology, it involves biology. That's really what I like about it. That's what makes it, I think, so much of an entree to science in general for kids.
What should people expect when they come to see the exhibit at Sam Noble?
I think what people are going to be amazed at when they visit is just how unusual these animals are. There's nothing like them.
Even by the standards of the dinosaurs already there.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's also interesting because, we tend to forget that we have been with what I would call deep time. We've been with an understanding that there were worlds beyond us that we can only know by going to the Sam Noble Museum. That has been with us for only a couple hundred years. But that gives us an incredibly valuable perspective. We see the depth of time. And when you walk into that exhibit, you're going to feel that right in your face. You're going to realize that, my God, on a different continent, in a different time, there was an incredibly interesting world that existed before us. And I think that's one of the main things.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to come in and
You're
talk
welcome.
to me. Thank you very much.
Enjoyed it very much.